Welcome to another edition
Eagle
of News Forum.
This is our frequent television show that will be coming to you on a regular basis. And my name is Dr. Malcolm Beach, and I am the host of the show. And I'm joined by our co-host, Mr. Malcolm Muhammad. How are you today, sir?
I'm doing fine, thank you. I'm happy to be here. Good to see you.
Okay. Well, this particular show, some of our goals that we've included is that we want to give you some information. Number one, we're trying to make it worthwhile in your time to be involved in watching the show. And we're going to have some fun, so it's not going to be one of those shows where it's so dreary and dull that it puts you to sleep. We might even have some entertainment, some live entertainment, just to keep you moving and shaking and looking at the different cultures throughout the world that are involved with the African diaspora. This is one of those shows that's going to cover the entire globe. We're going to not only talk about things happening in the United States, but we're going to cover the entire diaspora, including Europe, Far East, the islands, South America, Brazil. We might even take you to a trip down to Brazil just to see what's going on with the diaspora down there. Brazil is a country with the largest diaspora. They've got over 60 million folks that are descendants of Africans that live in Brazil. And of course, the United States got about 50 million. So those are some two major sources of the African diaspora. And we're going to talk about tourism. That's why I said we're going to be traveling around the world and visiting various countries and trying to get you to pack your bags and go. Tourism and cultural heritage is something that's very important, both in terms of enjoying yourself as well as the educational value. It has to find out what's going on elsewhere in the world. So today we're going to talk a little bit about the diaspora coming home, just the overall theme of what's involved with that. And one of the things that we want to talk about is we're going to ask Mr. Muhammad, my co-host, about what interest do you think Black people have in the diaspora and in Africa? What do you think?
Well, first of all, it's a pleasure to be here to join this discussion. I think it's a great discussion, an important discussion, which will, I think, usher in a new paradigm as far as Black people are concerned, because I think the interest in Africa is broad. As you mentioned, the diaspora is broad. You have descendants of Africa in Europe, in North America, in Central and South America, in the Isles of the Caribbean. So and also in the Far East. So I think it's a great discussion. I think in my discussion with other members of the diaspora, whether they be the children of immigrants from Africa to America, or those who have been in America for the past 500 or 400 to 500 years. The interest seemed to be, first and foremost, I think there's a financial interest. I think people are interested in trying to develop a rapport with, the diaspora is interested in developing a rapport with our kinfolk in Africa to develop our financial interest, which is to make investments in businesses, to also buy goods. Some people are obviously they're already buying goods from Africa. There are members of the diaspora who actually own logistics companies, so they're or shipping companies, so they're moving merchandise from Africa to other parts of the world. So I think we have a financial interest. Obviously, on another practical note, there are members of the diaspora who would just like to own a second home in Africa. So there's interest in actually relocating to Africa. We've had different experiences in the Americas and in Europe, and we kind of get this sense that coming home to Africa would be a great experience for us. So we're actually looking forward to. Some of us are looking forward to those types of transitions, and many people have already done it. They've moved to places like Ghana, or Senegal, or other countries. So there are people who already relocated to Africa. They've retired, and they bought homes there. Yeah. So this I think you'll see more of that in the future, which is you'll see more people choosing Africa as a home, which means buying homes in Africa. So obviously Africa is a diverse place. So hopefully through this discussion, we'll get into at least in some conversation or future conversation, what are those experiences? Those who have chosen to relocate, what do they have to say about it? Was it a good decision? Do they have buyer's remorse? So far, I've heard a lot of good stories, so I'm looking forward to further discussion on those who like to relocate to Africa, as well as those who want to invest in the African entrepreneur. And obviously, there's an interest in tourism. Some people just want to go to experience their cultural heritage, and to learn more about our culture in Africa.
Okay. Did you have a question for me?
Well, as someone who frequently travels to Africa, I was curious to know, what have you learned culturally, about your cultural heritage in your journey back and forth Africa? Now you've been going back and forth between America and Africa since 1987. So I think you started your journey in South Africa. You want to tell us a little bit about your experience in South Africa, and what your thoughts about Africa, how they've evolved over the past several decades.
Mm-hmm. Yes, thank you very much for that question. Like you said, I started my first trip to Africa was in 1987 and I was invited as a guest speaker in a conference of the National African Chamber of Commerce. I was their guest American speaker that year. And basically, I was totally blown away when I got to Africa. I mean, I can tell you the stories about, I'm looking for a horse and buggy to come pick me up at the at the airport, or some other kind of primitive contraption to take me to some tent or cave or somewhere, and so I'm trying to brace myself for all of that. But of course, when I got there, they said, Mr. Beach, do you want to ride in the Mercedes or the BMW to the hotel? And I went to this hotel, this very nice hotel in downtown Johannesburg, and I had a suite, air-conditioned suite with a fruit basket on the table, and I'm just completely blown away all the way. I couldn't believe it. And then we left the hotel going to the convention center where they were holding their conventions. And I thought, well, I'll probably get a chance to speak to maybe 200 African business people, because I know they don't have any businesses over in Africa, man. Got into the venue and the convention center. It was over 2,000 African businesses that were sitting there waiting for my message. So once again, I was just totally blown away. And the fact that they had so many business people in South Africa, even though they were still under apartheid, was really, really interesting to me. My particular message to the conference at that time was that when apartheid is gone away, things will change. And it may not be the way that you think. You're going to be excited about being able to go down to downtown Johannesburg and open up your shops in downtown Johannesburg. But the flip side of that is also true. The white merchants are going to be able to go into the townships now and open up their businesses, and they're going to be really, really big and large businesses. Um, and they didn't know how to accept that particular thought. But I told them they were going to lose market share, which meant that their sales were going to go down, and some of them will actually go out of business. So that was a message I gave them. Some of them took heed to it, and some of them just disregarded it and said, they don't believe that's going to happen. They think when apartheid is over, it's going to be wonderful. But aside from that particular time, I also got a chance to go down to Cape Town, and Cape Town was just so beautiful. It's on the water, and the Table Mountain, and just the whole landscape of Cape Town was fantastic. I encourage everybody to try to take a look. The thing about Africa, though, Cape Town is in the southern tip of Africa, which means it's closer to the South Pole. It's closer to Antarctica. So it's a little cooler than I had thought. So you've got all of that beautiful ocean down there, but some days you just can't go swimming, in Cape Town, but it's always beautiful. And so after that, I had another opportunity back in 1992. We got a contract with USAID, the U.S. government international aid organization. And we were putting together a group, a women's group. We had representatives from 30 countries, and we gathered them in Johannesburg and had a conference, and they were able to elect their leaders. And the president that they elected was from Kenya. So a continuation of that relationship was that we were able to extend our contract for me to go to Nairobi, Kenya, and help them open up an office in a headquarters office in Nairobi. And I hired and trained their staff, basically the secretary and the program manager for the organization, and helped them buy the equipment, set up their website, get a newsletter, the kinds of things that an organization needs to do to grow and to communicate with their members. Now, I was so in love with Kenya at that time. I was staying there. It took me about 30 days to set up the office. But after that, I just really enjoyed Kenya. Got a chance to travel around Kenya a little bit, to Mombasa in particular. That's where the ocean was. Nairobi is on inside the country, which is, but Mombasa. And so I fell in love with Mombasa. And I've been going back ever since 1992. I've been going back once or twice a year to Kenya. And it's really been a fantastic, like I said, experience. But at this point now, we're trying to develop some business relations with some business activities in housing, commercial refrigeration, solid waste management, there are many, many opportunities for the diaspora in Africa. And we've just begun to look into a few things. But there are many, many more things available for businesses, and even people want to relocate. I'm looking at the possibility of getting a vacation home, as you said, Malcolm. We get a vacation home in Mombasa, so I can come over and spend most of my time on the beach. But the people are very friendly. They speak English, of course, and that helps me a lot because I can't speak Swahili yet, but I'm going to be learning as I go over there. And getting to know the people, as well as some of the government ministers and people that work in the government. So far, it's been a very delightful experience, and I would encourage everybody to get involved and try that. Also, since I've been there, I went to a conference in Abuja, Nigeria. So once again, it was an opportunity to go to another country and experience a different culture And I would like to say that in Nigeria, they stick a little closer to their culture than some of the other African countries. I mean, they wear more African attire, um, and they seem to be more culturally oriented. Of course, Nigeria is the largest, has the largest population in Africa, and so they're very they've got, that means they've got the largest diaspora as well. So a lot of the diaspora are members of the Nigerian. Nigeria is their homeland, but I would encourage everyone to at least try it at least once. Homecoming, you will be welcomed in Africa when you go. And it's a lot easier to travel nowadays. It's easy to get a visa. A lot of places have visa on arrival. As soon as you get there, you can get your visa and just check in to the country. And they have five-star hotels. And you know, if you want to spend that kind of money, they will take it from you. They'll say thank you very much. And of course, they've got Uber. You know, they got the same stuff that we have in terms of transportation, local transportation that you can get to take you anywhere you want to go in that particular city or country. So, what we'd like to also talk about today a little bit is, you know, what do you think you need to do to prepare yourself for travel? Well, I like to say, you know, traveling getting a ticket in advance is very important, just like traveling anywhere else. You know, if you get a ticket more than 30 days in advance, like 45, 60 days in advance, the ticket price is going to be lower. Once you hit 30 days, the ticket prices are going to start to rise. Of course, we recommend getting your hotel reservation also in advance. There are a lot of different booking agencies now that you can get a reservation, hotel reservation, and compare the cost of the rooms, because depending on what month it is, you know, the room rates could be either high or low depending on the season for the country that you're going to. And likewise, once you get to the country, they generally the hotel has a relationship with a travel agent, and the travel agency can set you up on whatever tours and tell you what are some interesting points that you might want to visit while you're in the country. And, you know, always bring your camera so you can take some pictures, you know, because you're going to be able to tell your friends when you get back home what a great time you had, and the pictures will definitely help you do that. You know, if possible, you know, I would say go with a group or a traveling companion. That makes it a lot easier to move around, and for safety purposes, it's always good to go to some place with somebody if you're not familiar with the layout and the location. But most of the places that I've visited, they always have a lot of excitement. You know, the animals in Africa, they're there, but they're in the zoo, you know, or the park. They're not walking down the street with you when you go there. So you're not going to be in the jungle. You're going to be in the city most of the time, unless you take a safari and go out into the jungle or the parks. But they've got some fantastic national park with all the animals that you've heard about: the lions, the tigers, the elephants, the giraffes, and you can get pretty close to them. I hope you don't get too close, but you can get pretty close to them on a safari. And like I said, take some great pictures. And it's really an exhilarating experience. Most of the time, the weather is fine. It's great, you know, depending on what part of Africa you go to, what time of the year. The temperature could be anywhere from 70 to 85, you know. So some very good temperature range, especially from anybody coming from North America or Europe. You would definitely enjoy the temperature in Africa. And like I said, the places that I went, both Kenya and South Africa, they speak English. So that makes it, you know, a lot easier for you to ask questions about what's going on and to maneuver, you know, around the country or the city, depending on where you end up going. But on this particular show, what we hope to do in the future is to bring you some, videos of the particular uh, countries and in Africa, because heritage tourism is very, very important. People in the diaspora, some of them remember Africa, but then some of them, the next generation, the children, have never been to Africa. They've heard about Africa, but they've never been there, and they're going to want to come back once they get a certain age. They're going to come back and visit Africa because that's their homeland. That's where they're from. And throughout their life, they probably heard a lot about the traditions and the cultures of Africa. And the thing that's always interesting to me and a lot of other folks that travel, when you go there and you see people that look just like you, that look just like a cousin or uncle or aunt that you have, you keep shaking your head. You just can't believe it. These people, and that's because we're all from the same family, Africans and the African diaspora, especially these African Americans, that's where you come from. And you need to begin to embrace that. That's part of your culture. We try to tell the folks in America, the African Americans, that your culture and your history did not begin in slavery in 1619. You had thousands of years of ancient African civilizations, from Egypt to Mali to the Zulus in South Africa, a lot of culture of your ancestors that you got a lot to be proud of, and you get to experience that and learn a lot about that once you're in Africa. It's one thing to read about it in a book, but it's another thing to be on the ground. Most people, when they get here for the first time, they want to kiss the ground because now they know who they are. It's a revelation in your whole life in terms of who you are. You've been wondering all this time, where did I really come from? Who am I? But once you get to Africa, you'll be able to answer that question a whole lot better. And it's really, really fantastic. Another example, I was at a nightclub in Johannesburg, and listening to the jazz band, and they were just playing it. They was hitting it, And the guys, the friends I was with, I asked them, I said, well, how did y'all learn how to play that jazz and that drums that well? And then he looked at me and said, well, how did you learn how to play? Where did you get it from? And then it dawned on me, I just had to be quiet because I said, oh boy, here I go again, forgetting that the roots of music, is in Africa. All the drums and everything. These guys are playing saxophones, flutes and trumpets and everything else. All from here. And I could feel the beat. That was the other thing. I mean, they were getting it, and I could feel the beat and realizing that that's part of my culture. That's where it came from, and it was really a fantastic experience. And that has happened a number of times while I've been there. So tell me, Malcolm, are you thinking that one day you might make that big trip?
Oh, absolutely. I'm looking forward to it. Looking forward to traveling to Africa, to visiting several countries. Of course, I'd like to visit Ethiopia because of the rich heritage. You've told me so much about Kenya, so I'm looking forward to going to Kenya. Ghana has a history of welcoming Africans from America to Ghana. Afrochella has been doing I think it's been an annual or biannual festival where you bring Black people from the diaspora to Africa. They just had it in Ghana. So there's a movement towards, going to Africa and having a great cultural experience. I have friends that have visited Senegal and they went on a safari. They enjoyed the urban areas as well. So, Africa, I think, is on a lot of our agendas.
Yeah. And that's, that's the tourism part, which is very, very important, like we said. But there's also the real estate investment issue for a lot of people. Many people want to own something in Africa. They want to have a second home or even a retirement home in Africa. And so what we're finding is there are a lot of real estate developers that have these development projects that are flourishing all over Africa, because Africa's population now is somewhere around 1.3 billion, but it's growing so fast. In the next 20 years, it could be easily be 2 billion. And there's a need for more housing in the on the continent and in all the countries. And so that is an industry that's really growing very, very quickly. So both from a standpoint of being a real estate investor or a developer, or just someone that wants to buy some property in Africa, is very easy and readily available at this particular point. And that's both in the country as well as on the coast of that particular country, that you can get property at some reasonable prices. Compared to what's going on in America, these are some reasonable prices. So those folks that have already reached the what you say, the retirement age, where they got that check coming in every month, no matter what, this would be a good opportunity for you to buy a place in Africa and stay there as long as you want. And then when you leave, you could rent it out for someone else to come and visit. The programs of Airbnb are widely available in Africa. And so that's another great opportunity. And like I said, because the continent is growing so fast, then more people are living there. That means they have more needs for goods and services. So if you have a particular business that you want to open up, it's a lot easier in Africa because you have a greater number of customers available to buy the products and the services that you provide. So it's really a good opportunity for small businesses to look at in terms of a place they can open up. I tell people that over here in America, on the government procurement side, African diasporans, we scraping and scratching and trying to get 10% of the business, and may end up with 7%, after these other quote unquote new minorities have taken care of the minority program. But in Africa, my goodness, you can get 50, 60% of the procurements if you're well qualified and you've got the financial backing to underwrite the cost of the program and the project. I mean, that's one of the things that Africa is saying to the diaspora: come home and bring some financing and let's make some money. You can do some business operations over here. And much more and much better opportunities in Africa than are in the United States and the diaspora. Other countries, they're squeezing us in, maybe, but most of the time we get squeezed out, whereas in Africa, it's wide open. They want us to come. They want us to bring our expertise, technology, and of course, bring the money to operate these business enterprises, but it's wide open in terms of a market, and it's growing. It's the kind of thing that you really need to look at it if you're talking about expanding your business or even going into business. You would have a better shot at it in Africa than a lot of places in the Western hemisphere. Okay? So those are some of the things that we're going to continue to work into our future programs. And like I said, we will have some additional videos to show of some places in Africa that you might want to visit or open your business in, or even, like I say, relocate and buy some real estate. We're going to try to make the program very informative and entertaining. And we hope that you're able to join us here at Eagle News Forum. We have a newspaper called Eagle News, and we have a website called eaglenews.com, and you'll be able to connect with us through those entities. Right now, we're just saying go to eaglenews.com and let us know if you got any questions or any topics that you want us to discuss on the show. Like I said, let us know. Go to eaglenews.com and we'll get back in touch with you. All right. So this is Malcolm, Dr. Malcolm Beach, signing off. And you, Mr. Beach, Mr. Muhammad, would you like to say a few passing closing remarks?
Well, I think it's been a great show. I look forward to future conversations, and I also look forward to traveling to Africa.
Okay, that sounds great. Okay, well, once again, we want to thank you for joining us today, and you will see us again. We're going to be on the air frequently, and we're going to have some additional guests and continue the same basic topics about coming home to Africa, talk about heritage tourism, talking about trading and investment, okay, and we're going to be talking about the culture that we share between the diaspora and our homeland in Africa. So until next time, thank you very much for joining us at Eagle News Forum.
Take care.